Today live February 24, 2021 World News Headlines. Trump Jr. was deposed in inauguration funds probe. Manhattan prosecutors subpoena Steve Bannon financial documents. Biden says he has read report on Khashoggi murder. Saudi documents show Khashoggi's killers used jets seized by Saudi Crown Prince. LA Sheriff, no charges in Tiger Woods accident. McConnell knocks Pelosi January 6 commission proposal partisan by design. WHO team finds China did little to investigate coronavirus origins. Police seize more than 50,000 pounds of cocaine in Europe's largest bust ever. Facebook Oversight Board receives statement on behalf of Trump over ban from platform. China labels human rights criticism groundless. Biden to speak with Saudi king ahead of Khashoggi report. U.S. Senators weigh paring back Biden's $1.9 trillion COVID-19 aid plan. Vice President Harris urges Black Americans, let's not let COVID get us. Biden revokes Trump bans on many green card applicants, temporary foreign workers. NRA sues NY Attorney General, says she wants to destroy her political enemy. Drunken driving charge dropped against Bruce Springsteen, $500 fine for drinking at beach. North Korea's Kim calls for tougher discipline in his military KCNA. Australian Parliament passes news media bargaining code. Trump Jr. was deposed in inauguration funds probe. Donald Trump Jr. was deposed early this month as part of an ongoing investigation into alleged misuse of Trump inauguration funds, according to court documents filed on Tuesday. The February 11 deposition with investigators from the Washington, D.C. Attorney General's office is part of multiple probes into whether the inaugural committee misspent donated funds from the record $107 million it received. It specifically looked into a block of rooms at the Madison Hotel, which was owned by Loews Hotels at the time, for which the Trump Organization signed a contract to use during former President Trump's 2017 inauguration. According to the court documents, $49,358.92 was paid for the rooms by the Presidential Inauguration Committee, PIC. Court documents point to Lindsay Santoro, who was then Trump Jr.'s executive assistant, as the point of contact for the contract regarding the block of rooms. The person who signed and authorized the contract was Gentry Beach, who is described as a close friend of Trump. According to the documents, Trump Jr.'s deposition raised further questions about the nature of the Loews Madison invoice and revealed evidence that defendants had not yet produced to the district. Trump Jr. testified that he had not authorized Santoro or Beach to enter into the contract on behalf of the Trump Organization. Beach allegedly claimed that the rooms were being reserved for people who had been major donors to the PIC. People who were associated with the Madison Hotel rooms and invoice included individuals that Trump Jr. described as a college friend and another as a Trump family driver. Trump testified that one of the people associated with the rooms was a New York socialite who appears on the reality show Real Housewives of New York. The court documents revealed new information involving former PIC chairman Rick Gates as well. Gates allegedly had no knowledge of the Madison Hotel rooms before receiving an invoice from a collection agency. Mr. Gates said that the occupants were individuals associated with the PIC, but he couldn't recall the names, nor were they employees of the PIC, the court documents read. Soon after Trump Jr.'s deposition, prosecutors said they were able to obtain documents from the collection agency that contacted Gates. These documents directly contradict Mr. Gates's testimony, revealing that the invoice was not for PIC donors at all, but the payment was to cover rooms in the reserved block that were not used. Emails between the collection agency, Gates and the Trump Organization reveal an apparent sense of confusion over who would be paying for the Madison Hotel rooms. One email said, Rick Gates will provide payment, but needs the name changed. They plan to pay immediately when they receive the revised invoice. It just cannot say the Trump Organization. The Hill has reached out to a spokesperson for Trump Jr. for comment. Trump Jr. is not the only one of former President Trump's adult children to be deposed in the inauguration fund investigation. Ivanka Trump was deposed last year after the election, during which prosecutors looked into emails sent to her from Gates in which he expressed worry around the optics of the PIC paying the Trump Hotel a high fee. Manhattan prosecutors subpoena Steve Bannon financial documents. Prosecutors from the Manhattan District Attorney's Office have reportedly subpoenaed financial records related to Stephen Bannon and his crowdfunded Southern Border Wall project, according to a CNN report. The network reports that the subpoenas were sent shortly after former President Trump issued Bannon a pardon for federal conspiracy crimes in connection to the Southern Border Wall. Trump's pardon only applied to federal crimes, meaning Bannon could still possibly be charged in state courts. Reports came out early in February that the Manhattan DA's office was looking into potential state charges against Bannon. Sources close to the matter told the Washington Post that the district attorney's Major Economic Crimes Bureau was in the early stages of determining whether or not there was enough evidence to build a case against Bannon. Subpoenas were sent to Wells Fargo and GoFundMe, as they were used in handling the funds Bannon raised for his We Build the Wall project. Speaking to CNN, a spokesperson for GoFundMe said the company does not comment on or confirm requests for information from any law enforcement officials. Before he was pardoned, Bannon and 3 others had been charged with falsely claiming that they would not receive any compensation for their involvement in the border wall project. Bannon denied the allegations while the 3 others pleaded not guilty. Trump did not pardon the 3 others involved in the border wall project. CNN notes that the New Jersey Attorney General's office is also looking into Bannon's wall project, opening a civil inquiry. The Division of Consumer Affairs neither confirms nor denies the existence or status of investigations. A representative for the New Jersey Attorney General's office told CNN. Biden says he has read report on Khashoggi murder. President Biden said Wednesday that he has read the report on the 2018 murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Yes, I have, Biden told reporters in the state dining room after signing an executive order on the economy, without elaborating further. The Biden administration is expected to soon release an unclassified version of the report on Khashoggi's death. Biden also said that he would speak with Saudi Arabia's King Salman, but did not offer a timeline or confirm reports that the call would take place on Wednesday. I'm going to be talking to him. I have not spoken to him yet, Biden said. The release of the report is likely to complicate the U.S. relationship with Saudi Arabia. It is expected to find that Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman approved the 2018 killing of Khashoggi, who was a journalist for the Washington Post. The Office of the Director of National Intelligence, ODNI, will be releasing the report, which Reuters reported would happen on Thursday. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki told reporters earlier Wednesday that Biden would speak with King Salman soon but did not offer a specific timeline. Director of National Intelligence Avril Haines committed during her confirmation hearing to release the report on Khashoggi's killing. Congress was briefed on the classified version of the report in 2018, but the Trump administration resisted calls to release an unclassified version, even after Congress passed legislation requiring the intelligence community to release an unclassified version of the report. Reuters reported Thursday that the declassified report concludes that the Crown Prince approved and likely ordered Khashoggi's murder. The Post reported in 2018 that the CIA concluded that the Crown Prince ordered Khashoggi's assassination. Khashoggi had been critical of the Saudi government in his columns. Biden is expected to diverge from the friendly relationship that former President Trump and his administration had with the Saudi government. Psaki said earlier this month that Biden would recalibrate relations with the Saudis, including by speaking with King Salman rather than his son, the Crown Prince. Saudi documents show Khashoggi's killers used jets seized by Saudi Crown Prince. The men who killed dissident Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi flew on private jets owned by a company recently seized by Saudi Arabian Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, CNN reported, citing documents viewed by the network. The documents were reportedly labeled top secret and filed in connection to a Canadian civil lawsuit. In the documents viewed by CNN, a Saudi minister conveyed an order from the Crown Prince to immediately approve the completion of the necessary procedures for transferring ownership of the company, Sky Prime Aviation. The document outlined a procedure by which the company's ownership was to be transferred to the country's sovereign wealth fund in 2017, which the Crown Prince chairs. The killers then used the jets to kill Khashoggi in October 2018, according to CNN. Khashoggi died in Istanbul, Turkey in 2018 after he was ambushed at the Saudi consulate and dismembered. Mohammed bin Salman would have been tracking the company, and would have been aware of how it was used, Dan Hoffman, the former director of the CIA's Middle East division, told the network. And it's just more potential evidence that he was in the know on this. Which has always been the contention. This is just more evidence of that. Any evidence that basically ties Mohammed bin Salman and others, especially in a direct line way, which we believe this does, is extremely important. Faisal Gill, who represents Khashoggi's former fiancée in a federal lawsuit against the Crown Prince and several co-defendants, told CNN. Numerous intelligence agencies, including the CIA, have concluded the Crown Prince ordered the Washington Post journalist killing. Bin Salman has continued to deny giving the order, but has said he was responsible for Khashoggi's death. The Biden administration is set to declassify a report on the killing in the near future, possibly as soon as this week. President Biden is set to discuss the matter by phone with Saudi Arabia's King Salman rather than his son, the kingdom's de facto ruler. LA Sheriff, no charges in Tiger Woods accident. Los Angeles County Sheriff Alex Villanueva said Wednesday that no charges would be filed in relation to the one-car crash that hospitalized golf legend Tiger Woods early Tuesday morning. "We don't contemplate any charges whatsoever in this crash. This remains an accident is not a crime," Villanueva said on a live stream. "They do happen, unfortunately." He specifically dismissed the possibility of a reckless driving charge against Woods, saying the incident was purely an accident. "A reckless driving charge has a lot of elements to it. This is purely an accident. There'll be a cause of it and there will be a vehicle code attached to the cause," the sheriff said. "But that's an infraction, and reckless driving is actually more than an infraction. That's a misdemeanor crime that has a lot of element attached to it, and there's nothing like that." Woods crashed his SUV early Tuesday morning, striking a sign and crossing over a raised median before flipping into a ditch. He was extracted through the windshield of the car and was rushed to the UCLA Harbor Medical Center, where he received surgery for multiple leg injuries. Villanueva reiterated on Wednesday that there was no evidence that Woods was impaired at the time of the accident. "He was not drunk, we can throw that one out. Speculation, irresponsible, no. There was no evidence that there was any impairment," the sheriff said. "This is an accident. We're treating it as an accident." A statement posted to Woods' Twitter account Wednesday morning indicated that he is awake, responsive and recovering from his hospital room. McConnell knocks Pelosi January 6th commission proposal partisan by design. Senate GOP leader Mitch McConnell, KY, on Wednesday knocked Speaker Nancy Pelosi's, Democrat California, proposal for a 9/11-style commission to investigate the deadly riot at the U.S. Capitol, saying she is setting the panel up to be partisan. McConnell poured cold water on key aspects of the draft bill, including its design and its mandate, underscoring the challenges Democrats face in their bid to recreate a broad commission to probe last month's attack. The Speaker of the House proposes even more investigation through a new commission. She cites the precedent of the 9/11 Commission, but her draft bill fails to track with that precedent in key ways, McConnell said during a speech from the Senate floor. McConnell pointed to two areas from Pelosi's initial recommendations: how commission seats are allocated and how subpoenas are issued. This time, Speaker Pelosi started by proposing a commission that would be partisan by design. 7 appointments for Democrats, just 4 for Republicans, McConnell said. The GOP leader referenced remarks from Tom Keene and Lee Hamilton, the top Republican and Democrat on the 9/11 Commission, which was evenly split among Republicans and Democrats. Keene and Hamilton have indicated that they think the January 6th panel needs to be equally divided. Hamilton told Politico Playbook that unequal distribution sounds like a partisan beginning, while Keene added that the report won't have as much confidence from the American people if both parties don't get the same number of seats. McConnell also took issue with how subpoenas could be issued under the draft bill because it would allow the chair, appointed by President Biden, to issue subpoenas. A Democratic aide said that under the draft bill, a majority of the commissioners or the chair could issue subpoenas. Beyond the setup of the committee, McConnell also appeared opposed to the scope proposed by Pelosi. In a Dear Colleague letter, Pelosi said the commission would investigate and report on the facts and causes relating to the January 6, 2021 domestic terrorist attack upon the United States Capitol complex. The commission, according to Pelosi's letter, would also dig into issues relating to the interference with the peaceful transfer of power, including facts and causes relating to the preparedness and response of the United States Capitol Police and other federal, state, and local law enforcement in the National Capital Region. McConnell suggested he could support a commission that looks narrowly at security at the Capitol or digs more broadly into political violence across the country, in an apparent reference to protests and riots last summer after George Floyd's death in Minneapolis. Such a move would be all but guaranteed to spark fierce pushback from Democrats. If Congress is going to attempt some broader analysis of toxic political violence across this country, then in that case, we cannot have artificial cherry-picking of which terrible behavior does and does not deserve scrutiny, McConnell said. We could do something narrow that looks at the Capitol, or we could potentially do something broader to analyze the full scope of the political violence problem in this country, he added. A senior House Democratic aide also accused Republicans of slow-walking the discussion draft, saying that House GOP leader Kevin McCarthy's California office has not formally offered changes after being given a copy of the bill a week ago. Today, Minority Leader McConnell made clear that Republicans do not want a commission and that if one is created, they aim to try to make it about Antifa, the aide added. McConnell's pushback on Pelosi's proposal comes as 2 Senate panels, the Rules and the Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee, are probing the January 6th attack. The Senate Judiciary Committee is also looking more broadly at domestic terrorism. WHO team finds China did little to investigate coronavirus origins. Internal documents from the World Health Organization, WHO, reported that the Chinese government had done little to look into the origins of the coronavirus, The Guardian reports. The two-page travel report seen by The Guardian is dated August 10 and shows that the WHO team that went to China last year said they received limited information from their Chinese counterparts. They were not given any documents or written data during their discussions with Chinese officials, according to the report. The documents are a summary of mission leader Peter Ben Mbarak's trip to China, The Guardian reports. The mission was done to review work done so far on the origin of the virus. The WHO team reportedly met with multiple government ministries, including those in charge of market regulation, agriculture, as well as the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Following extensive discussions with and presentation from Chinese counterparts, it appears that little had been done in terms of epidemiological investigations around Wuhan since January 2020, the report read. The data presented orally gave a few more details than what was presented at the emergency committee meetings in January 2020. No PowerPoint presentations were made and no documents were shared. The news outlet notes that further trips to China by the WHO have taken place since the August 2020 trip, but China's cooperation in providing data on the pandemic appears to have remained limited. Australian infectious disease expert Dominic Dwyer, who was part of a WHO investigatory mission in January 2021, told reporters that after requesting raw patient data from their Chinese counterparts, they were instead given a summary. In July 2020, WHO was invited by the Chinese government to send a preliminary team to China to prepare for the work of the team of international scientists. The joint team of Chinese and international scientists began virtual meetings in the autumn of 2020, a WHO spokesperson told The Guardian, though they did not address the internal documents obtained by the outlet. They visited Wuhan in January to February 2021. In the early days of an outbreak, the absolute priority is to save lives, understand the disease and suppress the transmission, the spokesperson continued. But we also believe that the work to understand the origin of any outbreak should start early, when certain clues can be found more easily. Police seize more than 50,000 pounds of cocaine in Europe's largest bust ever. European authorities on Wednesday seized more than 50,000 pounds of cocaine worth billions of euros, calling it the largest such bust the continent has ever seen. CNN reported that authorities in Germany and Belgium made the seizure in an operation that lasted more than a week and resulted in the arrest of one man from the Netherlands. German Customs Investigation Chief René Mitsch told CNN that authorities in Hamburg opened 3 containers that were listed as containing construction putty, working off a tip from Dutch colleagues. Though construction putty was in fact found inside the containers, so were packages of cocaine. According to Mitsch, it was pretty disgusting to separate the cocaine from the putty as it is so sticky. CNN reports that 35,658 pounds of cocaine was found inside the construction putty containers. The seizure in Hamburg led authorities to another shipment of 11 containers on their way to Antwerp from Panama. Belgian authorities found another 15,873 pounds of cocaine in the Panamanian shipment. These seizures amount to not only the largest amount of drugs intercepted by authorities in Europe, but possibly one of the largest seizures in the world, according to CNN. We have succeeded in seizing a record amount of cocaine. With this blow against organized narcotics crime, also thanks to the exemplary cooperation with European partner authorities, German customs has once again impressively demonstrated its clout. Our strategy of continuing to massively strengthen customs is working, said Rolf Boesinger, German State Secretary at the Federal Ministry of Finance. Facebook Oversight Board received statement on behalf of Trump over ban from platform. Facebook's Oversight Board has received a statement on behalf of former President Trump regarding the case on whether to restore Trump's account, a spokesperson for the board confirmed Tuesday. The independent oversight body is weighing a decision on whether to keep Trump's Facebook and Instagram pages banned, as they have been since his posts following the January 6 insurrection at the Capitol. We can confirm that a user statement has been received in the case before the Oversight Board concerning President Trump's Facebook and Instagram accounts, the spokesperson said in a statement. The spokesperson declined to share further comment on the statement until the board issues its decision. Shortly after Twitter, Facebook and Instagram made their decisions, and before leaving office, Trump slammed the companies over the bans. He accused them of being divisive and said it was very, very bad for our country. A spokesperson for Trump was not immediately available for comment on Tuesday. The decision in front of the Oversight Board may have consequences beyond what happens to Trump's page. The social media platform, which referred the case to the board, also requested observations or recommendations on suspensions when the user is a political leader, meaning the board's decision on Trump could influence how Facebook handles future bans related to world leaders. Today, live February 24, 2021 World News Headlines. Trump Jr. was deposed in inauguration funds probe. Manhattan prosecutors subpoena Steve Bannon financial documents. Biden says he has read report on Khashoggi murder. Saudi documents show Khashoggi's killers used jets seized by Saudi Crown Prince. LA Sheriff, no charges in Tiger Woods accident. McConnell knocks Pelosi January 6 commission proposal partisan by design. WHO team finds China did little to investigate coronavirus origins. Police seize more than 50,000 pounds of cocaine in Europe's largest bust ever. Facebook Oversight Board receives statement on behalf of Trump over ban from platform. China labels human rights criticism groundless. Biden to speak with Saudi king ahead of Khashoggi report. U.S. Senators weigh paring back Biden's $1.9 trillion COVID-19 aid plan. Vice President Harris urges Black Americans, let's not let COVID get us. Biden revokes Trump bans on many green card applicants, temporary foreign workers. NRA sues NY Attorney General, says she wants to destroy her political enemy. Drunken driving charge dropped against Bruce Springsteen, $500 fine for drinking at beach. North Korea's Kim calls for tougher discipline in his military KCNA. Australian Parliament passes news media bargaining code. China labels human rights criticism groundless. A Chinese ambassador on Wednesday shot back at criticism from the international community regarding Beijing's treatment of ethnic minorities including Uyghur Muslims and the people of Tibet, as well as its treatment of Hong Kong citizens, Reuters reports. At this high-level segment, the UK, EU, Germany, USA, Canada, and some other countries abuse this forum of the Council to make groundless charges against China, to interfere in internal affairs of our country. We firmly oppose and categorically reject these attempts, China's United Nations Ambassador Chen Chu said to the UN Human Rights Council. Chen was reportedly responding to denouncements from U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Blinken held his first phone call with his Chinese counterpart in early February, during which he affirmed that the U.S. will stand up for human rights and democratic values, including in Xinjiang, Tibet, and Hong Kong. Reuters reports that European Union Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell called for Michelle Bachelet, UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, to be allowed to investigate alleged mistreatment in Xinjiang and Tibet. China has maintained control over Tibet since 1950, with many critics such as exiled spiritual leader the Dalai Lama calling the control over the country a cultural genocide. They should resolve their own human rights problems such as deep-rooted racial discrimination, gaps between rich and poor, social inequity, injustice, police brutality, Chen said, criticizing Western nations in response. Ignoring reality, the above-mentioned countries fabricate and spread lies about Xinjiang, Tibet, and Hong Kong, Chen added. International commenters have decried the Chinese government's crackdown on Hong Kong pro-democracy protesters. President Biden addressed his concerns regarding Hong Kong during his first phone call as president with Chinese President Xi Jinping. UN rights experts believe that at least 1 million Muslims are currently detained in re-education camps, according to Reuters. Reports have come out of Uyghur Muslims forced into labor, made to eat pork and be sterilized against their will. Canada declared China's treatment of its Uyghur Muslim minority group in the Xinjiang region a genocide on Monday, though Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau did not support the motion. Former U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo also called China's treatment of Uyghurs a genocide shortly before leaving office. The Biden administration is now reviewing that designation. Biden to speak with Saudi king ahead of Khashoggi report. President Biden is set to speak with Saudi Arabia's King Salman ahead of the release of an intelligence report likely linking the king's son to the murder of U.S.-based Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi, Axios reports. The reported call Wednesday would be the first between the two leaders since Biden took office last month, with the White House earlier saying the new administration is looking to recalibrate the United States' relationship with Saudi Arabia. The White House told The Hill on Wednesday that it did not have anything to share on a possible call between the president and the Saudi king. While Biden has publicly stated a U.S. commitment to Saudi Arabia and its defensive needs in the region, the affirmations came alongside the president's announcement earlier this month that he would end U.S. support for the Saudi-led offensive in Yemen's civil war. The report on the murder of Khashoggi is likely to come up in the call, as the president has emphasized a commitment to putting human rights at the forefront of U.S. foreign policy. Axios reported that the intelligence community's report on Khashoggi, who was killed inside the Saudi consulate in Istanbul in October 2018, is expected to be released on Thursday. The CIA reportedly concluded in November 2018 that Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, considered the de facto leader of the kingdom, personally ordered Khashoggi's murder, and legislation passed by Congress in December 2019 called for a declassified assessment by the intelligence community to be released. The Crown Prince denied involvement in the murder but said in a 2019 interview with PBS that he is ultimately responsible because the killing happened under my watch. Avril Haines, the Director of National Intelligence, DNI, committed to releasing the classified report during her confirmation hearing in January, saying she'd follow the law. The office of the DNI did not immediately respond to a request for comment by The Hill. Former President Trump notably downplayed the Crown Prince's reported involvement in Khashoggi's murder in favor of bolstering the U.S. and Saudi relationship. Riyadh was a key player in Trump's Middle East foreign policy. Saudi Arabia was the first country that Trump visited as a foreign leader, and the Crown Prince reportedly enjoyed a close personal relationship with the former president's son-in-law and senior advisor, Jared Kushner. U.S. Senators weigh paring back Biden's $1.9 trillion COVID-19 aid plan. Washington U.S. Senators on Wednesday were eyeing potentially significant cuts to President Joe Biden's $1.9 trillion COVID-19 relief bill as they awaited a ruling on whether the measure can include raising the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. The Senate parliamentarian was expected to decide soon whether Senator Bernie Sanders' proposed minimum wage increase is allowable under a rule allowing a simple majority, the 100-member Senate, to approve the sweeping relief measure, instead of the chamber's typical 60-vote majority. The House of Representatives on Friday could pass the bill that would help tackle the heavy human and economic toll of the COVID-19 pandemic, which has killed more than 500,000 Americans and thrown millions out of work. The Senate is likely to follow up in early March. The measure is Biden's top legislative priority. Senate Democrats and Republicans were looking at scaling back some of the biggest provisions, including expanded federal unemployment benefits, $1,400 direct payments to Americans, and money for state and local governments, according to lawmakers and aides. Some rural state senators hope that such cost cuts could create savings to be used to improve their lagging broadband service. According to a Senate aide familiar with private conversations, various senators mulled tying additional federal unemployment benefits to individual states' jobless rates. A new round of stimulus checks could be scaled back to exclude more high earners, the aide said. Several senators, including Democrat Joe Manchin, have said they were looking at a minimum wage increase to $10 to $11 an hour, instead of $15 by 2025, up from the current $7.25. I think even though several Democrats have some concerns that we can still find a basis for agreement, Dick Durbin, the number 2 Senate Democrat, told reporters. Democratic Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, who must juggle demands of progressive and moderate Democrats amid Republican opposition, described a U.S. economy in need of help beyond the nearly $4 trillion provided last year. Our country is still in the throes of crisis, Schumer said in a Senate speech on Wednesday. Millions of Americans have reported being thousands of dollars behind on rent, on utilities. Small businesses are hanging on for dear life. Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell acknowledged some families were still struggling, but surveyed a different landscape, citing strong retail sales and brisk manufacturing activity. Our country does not need another massive fire hose of borrowed money, McConnell said. Over 150 business leaders affiliated with the Partnership for New York City urged Congress to pass the bill, saying in an open letter, more must be done to put the country on a trajectory for a strong, durable recovery. Here, Vice President Harris urges Black Americans, let's not let COVID get us. Washington, U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris urged Black Americans on Wednesday to get vaccinated against COVID-19 as data shows Blacks and Hispanics lagging behind in inoculations. Let's not let COVID get us. Let's get the vaccine instead, right? Harris said in excerpts from an MSNBC interview. We know Black people are disproportionately likely to contract the virus and die from it, Harris said. We know when you look at who the frontline workers are who is the most at risk disproportionately. We are talking about people of color. Blacks and Hispanics have been particularly hard hit by COVID-19 with a disproportionate number of deaths, and public health officials have broadly called for equity in vaccine distribution. Harris, the first Black and Asian U.S. vice president, noted that Black small businesses were also being affected, with 40% going out of business. It is disproportionately affecting us, and if we want to get control of this virus that is harming us at a disproportionate rate, part of it is to get vaccinated, she said in the interview, to be broadcast in full on Saturday. Early data on U.S. coronavirus vaccinations suggested that Blacks and Hispanics received a smaller proportion of shots than their representation among healthcare workers and nursing home residents, 2 priority groups for COVID-19 inoculations. Enrollment of Black Americans in clinical trials was also a particular challenge. Mistrust runs high, in part because of the nation's history of unethical practices in medical research on African Americans. Harris' comments came as President Joe Biden's administration announced the distribution of 25 million masks to vulnerable populations in community health centers and at food pantries and soup kitchens. 2/3 of the people served by community health centers live in poverty, 60% are racial and/or ethnic minorities, and nearly 1.4 million are homeless, the White House said. In outreach to Black Americans in New York on Wednesday, the state's governor, Andrew Cuomo, appeared at the York College mass vaccination site with Black clergy members. Bishop Calvin Rice of the New Jerusalem Worship Center in the New York City borough of Queens said he had been vaccinated without incident. "This site is being opened specifically for our community. Every tube that's available for vaccination, you need to come and get it," Rice said. "We've seen what our communities look like fighting COVID without the vaccine, and it's painful," he added. "I believe the vaccine is safe. It is the best tool to protect ourselves." Biden revokes Trump bans on many green card applicants, temporary foreign workers. Washington, U.S. President Joe Biden on Wednesday revoked a proclamation from his predecessor that blocked many green card applicants and temporary foreign workers from entering the United States. Former President Donald Trump issued the bans last year, saying they were needed to protect U.S. workers amid high unemployment due to the coronavirus pandemic. Biden rejected that reasoning in a proclamation on Wednesday rescinding the visa bans. The Democratic president said they had prevented families from reuniting in the United States and harmed U.S. businesses. Biden, a Democrat, has pledged to reverse many of Trump's hardline immigration policies. Immigrant advocates had pressed in recent weeks for him to lift the visa bans, which were set to expire on March 31. In October, a federal judge in California blocked Trump's ban on foreign guest workers as it affected hundreds of thousands of U.S. businesses that fought the policy in court. NRA sues NY Attorney General, says she wants to destroy her political enemy. New York, the National Rifle Association filed a countersuit against New York Attorney General Letitia James, saying she lacks authority to invoke state laws governing nonprofits in her zeal to destroy the gun rights group. New York, the National Rifle Association filed a countersuit against New York Attorney General Letitia James, saying she lacks authority to invoke state laws governing nonprofits in her zeal to destroy the gun rights group. In a Tuesday night court filing, the NRA, which filed for bankruptcy last month and said it would switch its incorporation to Texas from New York, accused James of weaponizing her powers to pursue a blatant and malicious retaliation campaign against the group because she dislikes what it stands for. "While we review this filing, we will not allow the NRA to use this or any other tactic to evade accountability and my office's oversight," James said in an emailed statement. The Democrat had sued the NRA and Chief Executive Wayne LaPierre last August in a state court in Manhattan. She accused it of diverting millions of dollars to fund luxurious trips for officials, no-show contracts for associates, and other questionable expenses. In seeking the lawsuit's dismissal, the NRA countered that James sued with the sole purpose of seeking to dissolve a political enemy. It also said her selective enforcement of state not-for-profit laws violated its constitutional rights to free speech and equal protection. Both the NRA and LaPierre denied many of James' specific accusations in court filings on Tuesday. The lawsuit deepens the divide between the NRA and James, who is also seeking to dismiss the group's bankruptcy. Noting that the NRA claims to be solvent, James has called its bankruptcy and plan to reincorporate in Texas after 150 years in New York a bad faith effort to escape her lawsuit and oversight. She has also proposed letting a court-appointed trustee take over the NRA's affairs if the bankruptcy proceeds. A hearing on James' request is scheduled for March 29 in the Dallas Bankruptcy Court. Bankruptcy filings normally halt existing litigation, but James has said she deserves an exemption to enforce her police and regulatory power. The case is New York v. National Rifle Association et al., New York State Supreme Court, New York County, number 451625, 2020. Drunken driving charge dropped against Bruce Springsteen, $500 fine for drinking at beach. New York, Bruce Springsteen was fined $500 on Wednesday after the rock and roll legend pleaded guilty to a charge of consuming alcohol at a federally run New Jersey beach in November, and prosecutors dropped drunken driving and reckless driving charges. Springsteen, 71, whose songs have chronicled life in his home state of New Jersey and its shore scene for more than 50 years, entered his plea in an online arraignment before U.S. District Court Magistrate Judge Anthony Maudon in Newark. He admitted to downing 2 small shots of tequila on November 14 at Sandy Hook Beach, part of the National Park Service's Gateway National Recreation Area, where alcohol consumption is prohibited. Maudon, who said attorneys had agreed to settle the case before the hearing, also imposed $40 in fees, and then asked the rock star how long he would need to pay the $540 total. "I think I can pay that immediately, Your Honor," said Springsteen, seated next to his lawyer, Mitchell Ansell. "I think you can, but I don't want to compel you to do so," said the judge. "I'm going to give you a week to get this done." Ansell issued a statement after the hearing saying Springsteen was pleased with the outcome, noting that prosecutors could not prove the more serious charges and that his client had no previous criminal record. The November arrest, which had gone unnoticed until it was reported by celebrity news website TMZ on February 10, came after a park officer said he saw Springsteen take a shot from a 750-milliliter bottle of tequila and then mount his Triumph motorcycle. Prosecutors told the court the ban on alcohol consumption at Sandy Hook went into effect last summer. The beach extends into the Atlantic just south of New York City and is about 10 miles, 16 kilometers, from Springsteen's home. Springsteen also faced the more serious charges of reckless driving and driving while intoxicated. But Assistant U.S. Attorney Adam Baker said he was dropping both of them. Baker said prosecutors could not prove the reckless driving case and noted that Springsteen's 0.02% blood alcohol level was far below the state limit, even though the incident occurred on federal property. Maudon said he agreed, adding, "I can't imagine that I would be persuaded that the government could sustain this burden of proof." The settlement led Jeep to resume airing a 2-minute video it sponsored titled The Middle, first shown during the February 7 Super Bowl, in which Springsteen speaks of reuniting a divided America. "As we stated previously, we paused the commercial until the facts were established," Jeep, a unit of Stellantis, said in a statement. "Now that the matter has been resolved, we are unpausing the film." Spotify Spot.n also launched a podcast this week called Renegades, Born in the USA, featuring Springsteen and former President Barack Obama. North Korea's Kim calls for tougher discipline in his military, KCNA. Seoul, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un chaired a Central Military Commission meeting, state media KCNA said on Thursday, where he called for more control and discipline within the military. The meeting comes amid Kim's drive to rally his ruling Workers' Party to implement new policy goals for the next 5 years that were disclosed in a rare Congress last month, including the ramping up of military power and greater nuclear war deterrence. The meeting addressed a series of problems about political activities and discipline among military officials and called for tougher rules to control such matters. Kim said the establishment of revolutionary discipline within the military would decide the survival of the army and the success or failure of its activities, KCNA said. Australian Parliament passes News Media Bargaining Code. Sydney, the Australian Parliament on Thursday passed a news media and digital platforms mandatory bargaining code that will make it compulsory for Alphabet Incorporated's Google and Facebook Incorporated to pay media companies for content. The code will be reviewed within 1 year of its commencement, Treasurer Josh Frydenberg and Communications Minister Paul Fletcher said in a joint statement. The code will ensure that news media businesses are fairly remunerated for the content they generate, helping to sustain public interest journalism in Australia, they said. The passage of the code, developed after extensive analysis from Australia's antitrust regulator and almost 3 years of public consultation, may offer encouragement to countries such as Britain and Canada which are planning similar laws. Other countries have introduced legislation forcing major technology companies to negotiate with media companies for licensing fees for links that draw traffic and advertising revenue to their platforms. The new code makes Australia the first country where a government arbitrator will set the rates tech giants have to pay if negotiations with media companies fail. Frydenberg and Fletcher said the government was pleased to see progress by both Google and more recently Facebook in reaching commercial arrangements with Australian news media. Facebook had cut off news in Australia last week amid tense negotiations with the government. Don't forget to comment below with your common sense and subscribe to your podcast. This helps bring the podcast to life and grow it. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. We can't wait to continue this adventure with you. Support us on PayPal. Thank you very much and enjoy listening.